two vampire-themed tarot decks. One is, like, old, and one's sort of, like, newer and still in print. Don't think this one's in print anymore. I think this one came out in, like, 2004 or something like that. So, like, good luck finding these now for a decent price. But yeah. We have Charles Herring's Tarot of the Vampires over here. Oh dear, my cards are going everywhere. And we have the Gothic Tarot of Vampires over here. Scarabea. Yeah, I'm gonna flick you through these today. Give you like a look at the cards, so that way you can gauge like how the symbolism fits you and things like that. For a bit of like comparative difference between the Tarot of Vampires and the Gothic Tarot of Vampires, I picked both Death Arcana from both decks. Personally, I love this one. I'm biased. I like this Death card more. And you've got like the differences in art style, the differences in like what it sort of tells you. This one tells you not only the number, but also the card name, which is Death. This one only tells you the number. This one goes into more detail. So if you want something a little bit more beginner-friendly rather than just a bunch of keywords, and you want like a vampiric deck, go for sort of like one that's more modern and more like similar to this one. But if you want something that you're like, oh yeah, I understand the card meaning and I know the symbolism and stuff like that, and a little less beginner-friendly and a little bit more like on the artsy side, this one is a good one for that. And a fun one about the Arcana in this deck over this deck, this deck, it's just sort of like symbolism. This one, it tells, the Arcana cards tell sort of a story, so it like follows sort of like the same characters for the major Arcana and then go off and do its own thing for the minor Arcana. So if you're sort of like a sucker for that, that's what this one does. This one doesn't. We have the Fool in both decks. This one's sort of like a guy proposing, or like giving a flower. That's the rose and the lily. You'll notice that these are like recurring in this, sort of like in these major arcanas. This one we have what looks like two innocent people, shadows, kind of like cast a more monstrous side. You know, sort of thing. We have both magicians. This one is... I love how they use Anks as wands, can I just mention? That's really cool. But we have, you know, all the elements on the table, as well as a phone, you know, modernising it. He's in like a library, you know, whereas this one, it's sort of more... what's the word I'm looking for? This one's sort of more dialed down in the obvious symbolism. It sort of looks like a crypt in the background, and they seem to be doing sort of like a... possibly like a dance together, or like she's enamored with him or something, like an entrancement or something. I do want to mention, his necklace is probably supposed to be like random symbols, but if you like tilt it around a little bit, I think it's this way, it looks like it says Om. I do want to mention that. It's very cool. But this one's sort of more like a... This one's sort of more like a actual magician doing magician things. This one's sort of more like a dance macabre. So there's them two. Should probably do these face down actually, because that'll be a little bit easier. Both High Priestesses. Very sort of like similar depiction of two there. In this one you have the sun and the moon, and you have a heart of fire and a heart of ice. This one you have a vampire sitting in a chair with two what looks like shot glasses. They're filling with blood for some reason or another. It's probably something to do with balance. But yeah, there's the two symbolisms on those ones. I will try to go through these quick. We have both Empresses. We have one embracing a guy over here. He looks like he's sort of like, you know, being turned in a sense on this one. Whereas this one we have Lilith, with some familiars, the owl, the snake, the wolf, the tree. Not much to say about those two. They're all blending in. We have both emperors. This one is holding a globe with a bat on it, and a staff with a ram skull. Looks like he's walking in a trail of fire. Whereas this one person anointing the other person in some way, sort of like a spiritual journey, or sort of like a rite of passage in a sense. So both are quite similar in that sense. We have the Hierophant. Now, but I find both of these interesting because this one seems to depict a church with like a bouquet of both lilies and roses outside of. And this one is sort of like, almost like a puppeteer. Sort of like your life is being controlled by like a higher force, and like you need to break free from that higher force, and sort of that symbolism, which is interesting because I feel like they're going two similar but different approaches. Like they're both sort of like the higher forces. This one is they're in a church, which is obviously, you know, like the angels and stuff, which is the higher forces of this one, whereas this one it's more like you are a puppet being controlled by a puppet master. Oh dear, what am I doing? Is that right? Nope. Grabbed one. There we go. Both lovers seem to be like consecrating. They have like sort of like a ritual where they're like both sharing their essence, like the life essence. This one, very similar, like again, sharing sort of like life essence. There's the sort of like angel depiction. Sort of like watching over, but sort of like judgmental. And this guy looks repulsed. Which is an interesting way of going about it. There's like some sort of like doubt in that card, which is interesting. There seems to be like a tombstone that looks like the number 3 in the back as well. That's interesting. Got some numerology going on. Both chariots. This one is again a literal chariot being pulled by. I do like the masks in this one because we have tragedy and comedy, which is interesting. We have like a vampire on a carnival float, whereas this one it looks like a fight is about to unfold for some reason, which could be more in with the symbolism of the actual meaning of the card. It could be like some kind of challenge or conflict, some coming your way, and you sort of have to charge through it. Possible. We have strength. This one, there seems to be, I'm not sure if that's a table or a sarcophagus. Honestly, it kind of reminds me of the sarcophagus from Bloodlines a little bit. Question mark on that one. But we both seem to have like blood in these. Again. This one, there seems to have been like a fight that's unfolded. So more like literal physical strength in some way, like there's some challenge you've had to overcome. This one is a bit more subtle, but there's sort of like blood magic, summoning like a lion or a tiger, sort of like a totem of strength. But they're sort of like struggling with it in a sense. We have the Hermit. In this one, he's on top of like a old-fashioned building with a gargoyle. He's writing a note. Could be a love letter, could be a coded message. Not entirely sure. But yeah, there's like a light shining down on him. Sort of like giving focus to him specifically. The city in the background. We have, seemingly, which I find interesting, there's all these stars, but this one, for some reason, is specifically detailed. And the first thing that came to my mind was that maybe it's like Venus or something. But I'm not entirely sure. Could just be like artistic purpose. But there's this, for some reason this star is highlighted, so there's like some sort of like meaning with the star there. Whereas this one we have Someone looks like they're sort of like meditating or like trying to relax in front of some fire. Maybe they're trying to like sort of like get used to the fire, sort of like temper themselves, like I face my fears, all that sort of thing. Wheel of Fortune. This one's very cool. This one we have a guy examining what looks like some kind of mystical cube. Could be part of a tablet, could be some like ancient, like the vampire equivalent to like the Holy Grail or something like sacred that they've found. Whereas this one we have what looks like a story, and it's a wolf and a rabbit, which this one's interesting because depending on which way you flip it, it's like either you are the wolf or you are the rabbit. So it's either that you feel strong or confident, powerful, or you feel like something's chasing you, you feel endangered, you feel nervous for some reason. Like something is off, basically. Both justices. Slightly opposite sides of the coin, we have what looks to be some kind of like possibly hunter. In this one we have a crossbow, we have like a tatami mat with like a katana, we have some throwing knives in the back. So definitely like preparing for some sort of like inevitable conflict or another. Whereas this one, rest in peace this guy. We have the reaching in the car and what looks like they're trying to strangle someone for some unknown reason. Who exactly knows why. Maybe it's like survival, maybe he needs food in terms of like, you know, life force. Maybe he's wronged him in some way. There's like, it's like subtle, it's sort of like up to you to sort of like, why has he done this? Whereas this one it's more obvious, like, oh, there's conflict, there's, you know, like something you have to overcome. We have, making sure these are correct, 12, yep. We have both hangmans. In this case, it seems to be some kind of like vampire lord in the cave, who has what looks like recently awoken for some reason. His arms are sort of like in the coffin sort of like pose, but if you notice, they also sort of look like the infinite symbol, which is interesting. Whereas this one, it's a little bit more literal. He's hanging by some chains. He's spilled a cup of blood. He seems to have, like... There seems to be, like, stairs here, so maybe he's fallen down. Maybe it's sort of like symbolism that, like, something's going to happen. You're between a rock and a hard place. Sort of symbolism for that one. This is going to take a while, I do apologise. You've seen both deaths. I've shown you both deaths. Sort of similar in the same sense, like this one, I'm assuming she's died and he wants to bring her back for whatever reason. Whereas this one, she's being fed life force from him, whether like she knows it or whether she doesn't, like maybe she's agreed to it, maybe she hasn't. Both devil cards. This side it's more literal devil, this side it's sort of like a vampire as sort of like a synonym for the devil. They're both sort of being fed life force in this case. This one's sort of more like maybe she's bitten his finger. This one it's more literal, like it is literally like raining down from his wrists onto them. Maybe there's some sort of like power struggle, maybe they need like the power for some reason. This one seems more sort of like it needs to be done for some reason. This one seems more like it's like chosen to be done in this case. There's not really much I can say about these two, unfortunately. We have both temperances. Making sure that the... Yep, okay. Roman numerals did. This one, she seems to be making something with what I'm assuming is blood and sort of like blended up lilies. If I remember rightly, I think it's something to do with like they're trying to make a potion so they don't have to eat so many people in the book. But yeah, we have sort of like a Greek vase with a hunter on it, with a deer. This one, it seems to be raining blood from the sky. Not entirely sure why. Maybe it's some kind of like ritual that somebody's done. But yeah, there's those two. That's temperance. We have the tower. Again, this one sort of has a more literal sense. It's like somebody's house being burnt down by an angry mob. So something terrible has happened here. Whereas this one, something terrible hasn't happened, but may possibly be unfolding, because it seems like some people have been like grave digging or something, and they've brought up this coffin, and obviously, in this sense, where there's coffins, there's vampires, and there's probably a vampire in there. It's probably hungry, it's probably gonna murder a bunch of people. So this one, something terrible is unfolding, and this one is more something terrible is going to unfold. But it's not happened yet. We have both the stars, kind of similar in a sense. This one, she's sort of like flying in the air, looking at the stars, being like, oh yeah, that's cool. Whereas this one, it seems to be more sort of like spiritual. She sort of seems to be like doing some sort of ritual or prayer underneath the stars. So they're both sort of like spiritual in the sense. We have, yeah, that should be fine. It's just like, you don't see any. We have both the moons. One is, I do quite like this one, because at first you're like, oh yeah, it's like a pretty lady. She's like coaxing you into the water, but then you look underneath and it's kind of like, it's almost kind of like the call of like a siren. It's like something that seemingly is beautiful and innocent, but then like underneath it's like monstrously, you know, it's like dragging you into your doom. Whereas this one, it seems to be another ritual of some kind. The reflection is different, if you notice. It could be an artwork instead, maybe? Rather than a reflection then. But there seems to be some sort of like either artwork or reflection. It seems to be reflecting differently. There seems to be like some kind of like spirits or apparitions, possibly like past family members that have shown up in either the mirror or the artwork. And we seem to be a bit shocked about that. We have the sun. Yeah, you don't see anything. In this one, we seem to be what looks like either searching in or making some sort of like patterns in grains of sand. So it might be sort of like the passage of time or something. Whereas this one, again, is a bit more literal. There's a guy falling out of what looks like some kind of castle in the woods. Glass is shattered everywhere. The vampires tried to grab him and he was burning because of the sunlight. So, like, success for him, not so much for the vampire. We have Judgment, which is... That's a guy, so it should be fun. What looks like vampire lord being staked in this one. For obvious reasons. Notice that this is the same woman. See what I mean about, like, it tells a story in this one. This guy seems to be... I'm not entirely sure why. Maybe he's, like, fed up with his vampire life. But he seems to be willingly standing in the sunlight and burning to death. So maybe it's sort of like acceptance. Like, you know, I've done what I had to do. You know, goodbye, world. Speaking of world, we have the world. And we have the lady from the full card who's gone through all of the Arcana, like major Arcana. She is standing on top of a sort of like globe statue. And she has in her hand a rose and a lily, again. You know, at sunrise and or sunset. Whereas this one, it seems to be... I'm assuming from the symbols then, that this is like a vampire lady and she has like a child in her hands. She seems to be sitting in what looks like a pool for some unknown reason. But like I said, she seems happy, she seems pleased, she seems content. They both sort of seem happy, pleased, and content in both of these, so I'm guessing that's what the symbolism is supposed to be for these. I will only show you the major arcana because this has gone on for probably long enough. I won't show the minor. You've probably got like a sort of idea on sort of like which one you prefer and things anyway. Like I said, I like both of these for different reasons. But hopefully this has sort of given you a gauge of sort of like what one you sort of prefer of the two. Maybe you're looking for a vampire-themed deck, maybe you've looked at both of these decks and you're not sure which one you've wanted, maybe you're just curious, maybe you know someone who's into both vampires and tarot and you're sort of like looking for them or something. Either way, I hope this has been insightful and helped in some way. I shall see you guys in a future video.